So it's possible. But again, it is possible for that not to happen. Partly because you have the mechanical, I rolled a hit, I miss, I rolled a hit, I miss, thing that can happen. I've been in the same situation as you, where I started basically not only using maneuvers if that game had it, but milking some narration authority, because the rules, of course, say nothing about who narrates in many games. And the GM is kind of opening their mouth to say, okay, next person. But I'm talking already and talking about the position of my character following the hit. And that's all I do. It's just like one sentence, okay, so I end up here. Shit, I'm struggling to get my sword back in line or something. And that's it. And the GM, you can often see the game master, they're like, yes. And then they go on to the next person. Right. And because they're not used to actually having a visual picture, pretty soon it looks like your character actually has this visual, a much more interested cinematographer than the other characters. Fortunately, this behavior is contagious and everybody else starts doing it too. So, that's good. And so the thing I'm trying to get at is that it is in many games right there in the system. And the fact that narration is a very powerful piece of play, narration of the resolution is a powerful piece of play, that fun failure is, at least in the moment of what that means, is actually pretty cool. I mean, it can be very vivid, very, you can actually develop an antagonist through this. When you roll to hit someone like a zombie or something and you get a miss, but if who's ever narrating says, actually, the zombie, puts up their hand, right? And it goes chunk into their hand and it stops your sword stroke. And the zombie is, of course, a zombie and is just glaring at you. That zombie just gave you a pretty cool no-sell moment, right? A pretty cool moment of, zombiness that, everybody kind of, flinches a little and, looks forward to what's going to happen now. And it's just, and mechanically, all you did was just not hit its armor class. I mean, yeah. So those are possible. With Helma's example is the one that too, because it's related. It takes the same thing and puts it into the longer term. This is something I've been focusing on a lot ever since, for the last 2 decades, really. Because I struggled with perception rolls and investigation rolls horribly for two decades before that. What on earth? I mean, they failed the detective work roll. Now what am I going to do? How are they going to find the villain's hideout? What the hell? Why do we even have that roll? I don't get it.
Right? Yeah, that's what
people struggled with this a lot, especially with these published adventures, which do have. It's kind of like after they make their detective work roll, or they say a successful detective work roll will discover their hideout. But that's all the module says. You're like, well, what if it's an unsuccessful detective roll? Flip, flip, flip. There's nothing in here. Then you get these elaborate modules that eventually bring them back around to the lair, no matter what they fail. But what I'm trying to say is that after struggling with all of that and being frustrated, and the players being frustrated, after all that, because they know when you fudge. Don't ever kid yourself. You fake the outcome of a roll. You say, okay, I roll for you behind your screen for the perception, and they fail, and you say, okay, you succeed in the perception roll. We're all primates. They know you lied. There's no way around it. They just do. And so, I mean, any game masters out there listening to this who delude yourself that you breeze through these fudge rolls, screw you. We catch you every time. Don't think you don't. So the thing that I'm getting at, though, is incomplete information, the power of incomplete information. I realized when I was, Sorcerer taught me, I mean, I designed the thing, but it like a demon, it turned on me and taught me things I was not meant to know. And one of the most important things was incomplete information is gold. Everybody knows this, that person knows these things, this person knows that thing, this person knows that one thing, no one else knows that one thing, right? Fantastic. And just let the roles settle that. There is in Sorcerer a telltale. Every sorcerer has a telltale, every demon has a telltale. And every sorcerer can spot telltales, and there are roles for this. It was an ongoing source of stress when people tried to play the game when the sorcerers did not spot telltales. Like they might spot the demon, but not that the sorcerer was a sorcerer. I mean, they can see the person, but they don't perceive that that person is a sorcerer. And what I got from people over and over was, why did you do that? It makes it impossible for the group to come together.
Oh no.
Exactly. In 1999, people were not skilled. And I would say this was really common. And especially if you read the rule books of the time, it was people were not skilled at the notion that different player characters would be operating and making decisions off of differing, incomplete information, especially as they interacted. And that was just not part of the skill set. And the fact that I had come up with these telltales and stuff, well, the term that they used in Over the Edge was like the sign of your given, attribute. This person was a bodybuilder, and the sign of the bodybuilderness was these muscle shirts that they always wore and stuff like that, whatever. But the point is, I took that and I turned it into a perception roll thing. And people were really, really puzzled by it. But what I had learned in using it was that every time you ended up with player characters operating off of differing information. And it really made a big difference. So I started learning that whole scenarios and situations could be built off of what people didn't know or did know. In those circumstances where everybody blew it, like that cult lore situation, it meant that I could really be dropping in the consequences of massive decisions made by other people that you didn't know about or had no suspicion that they existed. Which in RuneQuest was really easy because you have like your mystic presences and stuff. This whole religion, this whole god or cult was mystically attuned to this place, interested in this place. You fail your cult lore about all kinds of things, well, then agents of that cult can come in hard in ways that you don't anticipate or understand. Yeah.
But this is dissociating, I think is the word, the what I'm doing and the effect of my failure. Like I want, like the easiest example would be, I want to spot things. Like I'm looking
around, right?
I'm looking around if there's something, and if I succeed, I will see the enemy in time. But if I won't, it doesn't mean I didn't saw the enemy. It means that the enemy attacked me first.
Right.
Or like,
right. This is something we struggled with a lot 2 decades ago exactly. And
it's something I know in circle of friends. It's if I succeed in charm roll, like those characters love me and they put their problems on me, like I'm your friend, right? But if I fail, they think everything is my fault, so they want to kill me. So it's kinda it's not what I did. in this mechanic.
Right. Or rather, what you did could be the same in either case.
Yes.
And that's true. And we talked about this when it came to ambushes. Now, I was playing the game, which at the time was called Hero Wars. And this is right when people were making up a lot of games that had big impacts and influences. And one thing that we found in Hero Wars was that it was better not to have perception rolls. It was better because all rolls were opposed. And so that's very interesting. Opposition in many people's minds meant you had to be aware in order to oppose.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did was I said, let's try something else. What if there's a character that you don't know is there? They roll to hit you, and you have a defensive attribute. You have some ability which is a viable defense. Let's just go ahead and roll as if you were aware, but a failure meant that you weren't retroactively. So it was tied into the defensive roll whether you saw it coming or not. And Circle of Hands does the same thing at an even more extreme level. The Sorcerer does that to some extent because it sets the order of action, so you know by the order of action whether you saw it coming in time or not. Circle of Hands actually has a lot to do more with the damage roll in combat. If they do no or a small amount of damage, then that means that you literally were able to get some form of defense up in time. And so it's very retroactive. And so those are ways to kind of get around, okay, I go into this area. The game master makes my passive perception check. Oh, I fail. So so the DM says, you don't see anything. Then I get suspicious. What do you mean I don't see anything? Well, I really look. I want another roll. I want an active perception check. So you roll. So you don't get your active perception check. You fail. So then you have to roll their ambush skill or something. What if they fail their ambush skill?
So
that means that they suddenly reveal themselves after all. In other words, do you see what I mean? There's just this ongoing, never-ending set of rolls on my part and their part. And my God, it's like trying to thread the needle, you have to get through this freaking canyon, this twisting canyon of outcomes to finally figure out whether they have a clear shot at you or not. It can be maddening, frankly. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, that's why I just said, screw it. We're just going to find other ways. Most of my games just don't trap us in this net of continual rolling for attempts at everything until we finally get to the point where we can actually have a resolution of whether I get narrow in me or not. So, Alexandra, what's up?
So one of those things that you're talking about is a difference. What are we rolling for? In the D&D, if I know there would be a fight, I have to prepare a mat, like a battle mat, and the characters have their tokens on it, and then I have to know if there's an opponent. And then they could, and I will say that they have to roll for perception or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the perception roll is opening the moment of making the start of the fight.
Right.
So it's kind of weird because the moment when I'll call as a GM for this.
It's the ongoing issue. Yeah, it's the ongoing issue. They know something's there, right?
It not only they know something, it's that the moment when I call for the roll might change the beginning of the fight. Like if the opponent is like 60 yards from the goblins with their small bows. The goblins are in less good position than if they're in the like 30 yards or 20 yards in, you know. And the second thing is that when we're rolling for perception and then for ambush and then for something and then for something, it's not obvious what really happens. Like,
Exactly.
can I spot it or not?